All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal. Yet another, the opposite of victory is defeat. Defeat podcast. We've had one victory podcast and 4 defeat podcasts here on Patriots First and Goal. Here with my good buddy Rich Hill, breaking down probably one of the more interesting podcasts we're going to have because not sure if you heard the news, Rich Hill, but the Drake Maye era has officially begun. It is here. We now have a reason to watch the games again, which is really, really nice. So let's jump right into it, man. First and goal. I think the Drake Maye news and the Patriots-Dolphins game news is kind of one and the same because I would imagine I'd love to know your take on why here and why now as opposed to maybe why last week or why they're not waiting until after a tough Texans team. But I feel like based on the game we saw where 2 really, really terrible teams – tried to hand the game to the other one, and the team that sucked the most was eventually New England. Seeing that 15-10 debacle, I imagine that had to have at least something to do with why they decided to switch to Drake Maye because that was a really hard game to watch, even as a football fan who really loves the sport. That was just an unbearable 3 hours of my life.
Yeah. No, one team trotted out their third string quarterback, and the other team was the Patriots. And the Patriots were the worst. They were so bad out there. Honestly, at the end of the day, Patriots are a few better plays away from being 3-2. And I think that the Patriots left that Dolphins game feeling like, man, if we put in Drake Maye for that game, we probably would have won that. And once you feel that, it's over. There's no reason to keep going with this Jacoby Brissett offense because it is literally the worst offense in the league.
Yeah, and again, I like Brissett. I really liked him as a rookie with the Patriots. I still remember that Texans game where he came in on like Thursday night after Garoppolo got hurt and won. He had that bootleg for like 20. Like he will always have like a place in my heart as like a good team first guy. But he's just really not doing anybody any favors. And it's not even a scenario where I feel like the other players around him are getting anything either. And you just had to make the switch. I just wonder, do you think, Rich, in a different scenario, he wouldn't be starting Drake Maye this week? Or was this probably always, quote unquote, the plan for Gerard Mayo?
No way. There's no way that they looked up and down their schedule and said, this Texans game. Yes, right. This is what we have circled on our calendar. I kind of feel like they were going to go as long as they could with Jacoby Brissett, right? That's what we talked about during the offseason. This is how the Patriots have always approached drafted players and the veterans that they sign in free agency, is that you set a threshold with those veterans that you sign in free agency as being the floor, that if you put them on the field, the expectation is that maybe they'll be league average. Maybe they'll be, a top 20 player out of 32 at their position, but that's the floor. And then you get a bunch of higher upside players as well as rookies that you draft or get an undrafted free agency. And if they outperform those veterans, then you're going to have a well-equipped at minimum of average with a lot of upside, a lot of young players to do that. And that's what Jacoby Brissett was. Jacoby Brissett was meant to come in and be, can you be the 20th best quarterback in the league? Not maybe like 20 to 25th. Like the standards were so low. But the idea was that if Drake Maye can outperform him, then cool. We'll have our guy who that as a rookie could be in a, average middle of the road quarterback, which is cool. Awesome. But instead, what they got out of Jacoby Brissett is literally the second worst starting quarterback in the entire league, ahead of only Deshaun Watson, who is just the worst quarterback in the entire league. And so they could not possibly justify keeping Jacoby Brissett out there when every other quarterback in the league that had his level of production was either benched or a rookie or they got hurt. And so there's just no way that they could have said, for a 6th week in a row, let's put out this quarterback that can't lead an offense with more than 150 net yards through the air.
Yeah, it's weird you're 100% correct in that Jacoby Brissett would have been benched under majority of other circumstances. I mean, Robert Saleh got fired this week for the way the Jets are playing right now. I mean, there's no way he has done enough to earn his job, and he has to know that. And when you drafted a kid 3rd overall, it's like, what are you waiting for? So I'm very excited about it. It gives me a good reason to watch. You and I both talked about how wins and losses don't really matter this season. It's all about who's growing, who's developing, what you're seeing every week. So are you, Rich, are you taking anything away from the Dolphins game or even these first 5 weeks at all in terms of the offense? Or do you see week 6 against the Texans is almost kind of like a factory reset and we're back to square one?
I mean, that's a good way to put it. I think that what we learned so drastically is that they needed help, that the running game is good. Antonio Gibson, fantastic. Outside of the fumbles, Ramondre playing exceptionally well behind a middling at best, but really just a bottom 5 offensive line in the entire league. What we also learned, though, is that the offensive line is not as bad as their numbers show because of how bad Jacoby Brissett was. He was holding onto the ball too long. He had no ability to sense pressure whatsoever. He was making them look worse. And so as a result, we see a bunch of players, there's some stats that have Jalen Polk as being the rookie receiver that's generating the most separation relative to any other rookie receiver in the league. Demario Douglas, when given the opportunities, can deliver. Hunter Henry had that one big day. Obviously, all that did come with Jacoby Brissett under center. But what we also saw was a quarterback that could not connect with any receiver more than 10 yards down the field, and especially not outside of the sticks, and wouldn't even take a chance up the seam. And so you had defenses that said, we can run our most vanilla possible defense and you still can't beat us. And then as a result, all of these other players and their development stalled, right? You cannot say that any of these players on offense are better now than where they were in week 1. And that's not okay. This is a rebuilding team where you need to have some level of progress from players. And whether that's an offensive line that's showing a little bit more, ability week after week, or seeing some progress from Demario Douglas to take the next leap, because this is his sophomore year. You want to see a little bit more out of Jalen Polk than what we've seen out of here, where he's currently one of the least efficient receivers in the league because he's just not connecting. And so you look up and down the roster and say, I don't think any of these players on offense are better. What is the shared thing? It's either Alex Van Pelt or it's Jacoby Brissett. Jury's out on which one is truly the problem, but there's one that they can make with everyone kind of being in agreement on. So we're going to see what Drake Maye does instead of Jacoby Brissett. And if by the end of the year it doesn't improve, then we have our answer on Van Pelt.
We do. And also, I'd imagine, we'll never know for sure, but I imagine there's probably some talk in the locker room or some sentiment in the locker room. Like the players have always been very much behind Brissett, and I imagine they like him as a captain and as a person. But they're also got to be like, listen, man, my job is to play professional football, and this is not helping me make a living at all. What am I doing here? What's my motivation to stay right now? We're just here spinning our wheels in the mud, and it's just really not working. So I'm hoping this is one of those things where, sometimes a coach will get fired and the interim HC will take over and the team will go on like a 4-game winning streak because they're all like freshly motivated. Maybe Drake Maye will really breathe some life into this offense because this defense remains solid. I mean, they didn't look great against the Dolphins. They really have to struggle against the run. I don't know why they can't hold the edge on rush to the outside. It drives me nuts watching guys bounce from the outside. And I'm getting concerned about the tackling. I don't know how many times guys get contact at the line and fall forward for like 4 or 5 yards. So there are some issues on the defense. Probably the injuries. No Barmore, obviously. No Juwan Bentley. Kyle Duggar was out. So they're missing some big bodies along the defense. The defense is still good enough to keep them in games. Christian Gonzalez completely shut Tyreek Hill out. He's got just an absolute row of trophies on his wall of just amazing receivers he has stifled. So the Patriots can hang in games. So I'm hoping that Drake Maye will represent this kind of breath of fresh air, and they'll lose some close ones, but they'll have a couple of drives, and we can come back on these podcasts and feel more optimistic. Well, we will not open our conversation with what the hell was that? We'll be like, we know what that was. And that's all I really want this season. I want to know, like, this was a big loss. They got their asses kicked. This is a better team. And this play looked good. This drive looked good. I saw what they were looking to do with this one. It didn't work because they're not quite on the same page yet. But those things really aren't happening this year. And it needs, we're more than the core. We're getting close to the halfway point of the season, which is already insane to say. And the fact they're not farther along now, I think is very concerning. So I think they should have started Drake Maye last week, but 1 week too late is not too bad to me.
Yeah, totally. And like to your point, I'm looking forward to even having his growing pains because at least it's a promise. It's a promise of some sort of development. It's a promise of maybe they can become a little bit more than what they have been. What I mean, we'll break down the offense as we break down the Texans game. I did want to spend time talking about the Patriots defense.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dolphins were down to their third string quarterback. They still Dolphins offense. They have a lot of really good blue chip players with this Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Their running backs are all incredible. Odell Beckham is there, like wide receiver 3. They have players out there. And when you look up and down on this Patriots defense, specifically thinking of that, back end of the roster, because Patriots were down Duggar, they were down Peppers. They were obviously down a lot of their linebackers. But Jalen Hawkins, Marte Mapu, Del Pettis, 3 players that I feel like did very well with what was given with them. Marte Mapu went wire to wire, started at linebacker, which is great. I'm very excited to have him out there. It gives them a lot of range in that secondary. But the more he's able to get more comfortable, I think that there's a lot of promise there. And then we mentioned Del Pettis a lot during the preseason, but came in at safety, did a very solid job out there as well. When you see all of these Madden Mika players out there on that Patriots defense and they still do well, what are your takeaways for what is the potential for this defense?
Yeah, I mean, Marte Mapu is probably the big story from this one. He had the green dot on his helmet, which was great. I was always very high on him. I think he was a great pickup for the Patriots, a great draft pick for the Patriots. It makes you kind of heartbroken for looking at what we saw against, even though there were 193 yards on the ground they gave up. The Dolphins were committed to the run and they got gas. I think they spent the ball for 9 more minutes. So eventually you're going to wear the defense down. But it makes you kind of heartbroken for what this defense would have been or could be if Barmore was there.
Yeah. If
Bentley was in, if Duggar was in, if they were at full strength. And if they I think that the big, I guess, the only real negative I think that needs to be fixed, and it's very fixable, and that drove you and I nuts last year, Rich, were just how many stupid mental errors and dumb penalties and repeat penalties we saw.
Yeah.
There's 12 men on the field on the punt that kept the drive alive. Keon White drew back-to-back 15-yard penalties, these stupid little things that are very fixable, meant this when it comes from the coaching staff. But again, my initial point is this defense could be something really, really special if they can get their guys back on the field. And it'll probably be too little too late this season. Again, I don't see Barmore coming back. Duggar maybe might be back. He's that ankle is probably not going to sideline it for the entire season. But you see these young pieces, and it gives you hope, right? I think the theme of today's podcast is hope for the future. We've kind of seen it a bit on the defensive side now with all the injuries, and we're hopefully going to see it on the offensive side now against the Texans with Drake Maye and company.
Yep, totally. Well, I'm excited to start breaking that down heading to week 3, or not week 3, the week 6 against the Texans. Is there anything else that you want to cover on this Dolphins game that another film that we can bury?
Yeah, I think this is now got good. Again, I think we should kind of start fresh. I think this is kind of like we're turning the page. I'm not taking too much away from anything we've seen over the past couple of weeks. It's a little later than I would have liked, I guess, but maybe it'll all work out because the things Maye saw happening from the sidelines, he will incorporate into his start going forward. So let's close the book on the Dolphins game, and we'll close the book on the, hopefully, knock on wood, the Jacoby Brissett era in New England. If he comes back in, I mean, something going really, really south, and I may have to quit watching football altogether. So we can't have that. So let's move on a second to go, Rich, and go around the league. This Around the League trip is brought to you by Prize Picks, which is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is also the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because all you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's also the only real money daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your guys gets injured. That means if your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, your Prize Picks picks are still alive. I say it all the time. With the Patriots, you got to go with the less. All you got to do is go with the less with the Patriots. Less than rush yards or maybe more than 8 sacks for Jacoby Brissett. You can make a killing on Prize Picks. So just download the app today. Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly when you play just $5. That is code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive that bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Rich Hill, week 6 is underway this evening with a interesting 49ers Seahawks matchup. And there are also some pretty cool matchups around the league here in week 6. There are also some duds, I think, in week 6. But to your point, the duds are always the most exciting ones because for some reason, that's always what works in the NFL. I'll tell you the one I'm sneaky excited for, and I never thought I'd say this come back in like August. Commanders Ravens at 1 o'clock. That's going to be a barn burner, I think. I'm really excited for that one. And that's a wild thing that I had to say that. So I'm gonna stop and compose myself, and I'm excited for a Washington Commanders game and realize what the hell's going on with me. What are you excited about this week?
Literally that game. That is the game where the Commanders will prove if they are truly a contender or if Jane Daniels is kind of just a very good rookie. Commanders are sitting at 4-1. They're on the road against the 3-2 Ravens. Ravens have had some pretty bad luck from a score perspective. Like they could be a 5, kind of a team here. They have such a strong roster. Lamar Jackson is playing MVP level, best quarterback in the league of the past decade, but is playing at that level still. And them as the backfield, they are a threat to go for 300 yards on the ground every single day. And then you put out Zay Flowers. They have a bunch of tight ends that can all produce. Ravens are a very good team. Ravens honestly are a team that I feel like the Patriots should try and build like and emulate just from how they built their offense and how they kind of approach it, especially with Drake Maye back there. Not the same player as Lamar Jackson, obviously, but some sort of an idea of how do you construct an offense in a productive way and get players open. But yeah, Commanders Ravens definitely gets my attention on this one. I think a lot of the other games are kind of like question marks, other than I would say the 3-1 Lions on the road against the 3-2 Cowboys.
Yeah.
Two of the better teams in the NFC right there. Lions have just been on the cusp for a little bit. I think that they have really good pieces. Cowboys also have been on the cusp, but always kind of underwhelming and disappointing. So this could be one of those games where, it could be a really exciting one. One of those teams really cements themselves as a top contender in the NFC, or it could just kind of be a snooze. I feel like the Cowboys are very apt to just put up just terrible performances in between some of their better ones. And so this could also just end up being a terrible game. But as it looks at all of the games for this week, that has the highest upside in my mind.
Speaking of upside, the opposite of upside, I think, maybe not, but as an AFC East guy, the Bills-Jets game.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting from the Monday Nighter. Again, the Jets fired Robert Saleh. Aaron Rodgers is insisting he had nothing whatsoever to do with that. It is patently false. I quote him on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week. Not buying that for a second, but Robert Saleh was not a great coach in New York. His record does not reflect anything positive, but it is the Jets, and the Jets are always going to find a way. What do you think of the Bills-Jets game? You think it's going to be an absolute blowout? Because the Bills are kind of in a skid too right now.
The Bills are one of those question mark teams where I don't think they're as good as their record says it is, just because they haven't really been able to perform, but they did pretty well a couple weeks ago. Like they have some ability to put up a lot of points. I don't believe in them a lot. But I also think that like the Jets, they're in a point of flux. So I would never choose the Jets in this circumstance, but I'll also just point out that for Saleh, he was given such a raw deal. He put together literally the best defense in the NFL during his tenure there. He got the team and they ranked 32nd overall in defense. And then by the time he was done with it, over that stretch the past few years, they've been number 1 as a defense. Patriots been like number 2 during that, number 2 or 3. But like the Jets have literally been the best defense during that time frame. And you can't blame him for Aaron Rodgers getting hurt.
Nope.
You can't blame him for them being like in a competitive spot this year. If they beat the Bills, they'd be number 1 in the division. You can't blame him for just the chum bucket of quarterback that they were giving him during the start of his tenure. And so I think he was given a raw deal. I think he's going to land somewhere a la Brian Flores with the Vikings and really turn some team's defense around into the top unit in the league. He'll get another chance at some point, I'm pretty sure. But he has shown the ability to make multiple elite defenses. He'll be fine. Hopefully he can go someplace that gives him an actual shot with a real quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good coach. The team seems to like him. I just feel like maybe there are certain expectations. I'd like to hope that Thursday night matchup against the Patriots did to the Jets what maybe the Bengals game did to the Patriots, where the Jets are like, we are back. We finally beat the Patriots. Aaron Rodgers is back to elite form. And then they lost to the Broncos, and Aaron Rodgers threw like 8 picks in London. And now they're like, crap. It must be Salah's fault. Get him out of here. Because they put a lot of eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket, and it might not be paying off any dividends. Rich, to that end, am I being a ridiculous homer? Should I be taking off my homer hat when I say, if I had to pick which team in the AFC East is in the best spot, it's kind of the Patriots, because we knew they were going to be bad. They have hope in a quarterback. They have a ton of cap space coming up, and they're on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
Bills, I think, are just good enough to win the division and get bounced in the first round of the playoffs every year and never do anything with Josh Allen's prime. The Dolphins are in cap hell, and their star quarterback may never play again. And the Jets are a complete mess with no head coach and a 41-year-old quarterback who's kind of a douche. So it's weird that we're sitting here 1-4 last in the division, but I would not trade places with any other team in the AFC East based on how everything's shaking out, which is crazy to say.
We got the division right where we want them, baby. It's I mean, personally, in this, we'll talk about this during the Texans game preview. It really comes down to the coaching staff, right? Where it's like, I think that the Patriots roster is not as bad as they've been performing. I don't think that they're a great roster, but I think that they've been underperforming. And the question that has to be answered is, was it because of Jacoby Brissett, or is it because of Van Pelt? I think that the defensive side of the house, special teams, been great this year. I've liked a lot of the moves that the front office has made, other than addressing in a more meaningful way the offensive line. I know they've drafted a lot of players in the middle rounds, but I want them to spend money on that offensive line for free agent players. The question to me comes with can Van Pelt, Josh Allen, who is a top 3 quarterback in the league, and top 3 quarterbacks in the league can overcome a lot of deficiencies that your offensive coaching staff can throw at you, which he has. He is at that level. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson are pretty much offensive coordinator proof. They can just make any offense great. And can Drake Maye become that person? I don't know. But it's one where I would take the franchise quarterback position with Josh Allen over any other situation. But I also think that you're right, that I think the Bills are just not going to do anything with his prime.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like the early aughts Chargers. They had like LT and like Phillip Rivers, and they were just nasty, and Vincent Jackson, but they could never get over the hump. And the Bills fans are desperate for a Super Bowl. And again, obviously it's better to win and lose, and you can't be always looking Super Bowl or bust. But I think if I'm looking on the AFC East, I'm like, at least the Patriots have a longer runway than anybody else does. And that runway hopefully has a plane on it that can take off and take on the Texans. The Drake Maye era begins on Sunday at 1 p.m. at Gillette Stadium. Houston Texans are on the docket, a very good team. They have a very good quarterback. Although I just found out today that Nico Collins is out. Their star receiver is no longer going to be out playing. He's out for at least 4 weeks. But we'll talk about the defense in a minute. I want to start with the offense, obviously. This is a tough one, right? Patriots offense against the Texans defense. Like we said earlier, I'm not really going to use a whole lot of what we've seen the past 5 weeks as any kind of benchmark or indicator of what we're going to see now. But I would imagine, despite the fact that Drake Maye has a lot of upside and he outplayed Brissett in the preseason, this is not a go out there 5 wide, call some audibles, see it at the line, and then start slinging it. I imagine they want to keep pretty run heavy. They want to keep pretty high percentage passes, get in some screens, some quick outs, some slants, ease them into things, maybe air it out later. But I imagine a very conservative offensive approach is better, good not only to give the Texans Patriots a chance to win, but to mitigate Drake Maye's exposure out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good Texans team. It's a young one, so they're not like consistently elite yet, but this is a good Texans defense. You know, they rank middle of the board as it relates to a lot of things. They are unfortunately skewed downwards by that Vikings game in week 3, their only loss of the year. Other than that, they've been an above average defense. They rank 4th overall in points allowed. They have the 4th best pass defense. They're a little bit vulnerable to the run, but they're a solid defense as it goes. I think their weakness comes at that linebacker spot. Al-Shaair and Tutu are their 2 linebackers, but they have a really good secondary that's very young. Peter out is their slot safety guy that I really liked coming out of the draft a few years ago. Lassiter is out there, as well as Stingley, their young cornerback. So they have a talented secondary out there. And they also have 2 really good pass rushers, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, 2 of the best in the league at what they do. And so if there's any vulnerability, it would be slightly up the gut, up the middle, a lot of Ramondre Stevenson. Is it countered by the fact that the Patriots' interior line is a bit of a mess? Kind of. And do you need to have some sort of a passing attack to do anything at all in today's NFL? Absolutely. But the ingredients are here for the Patriots to have some production on the ground to maybe take some of the pressure off of Drake Maye. The play action, or getting him in situations where he can use his legs to kind of extend plays and try to perform and produce off schedule. Because the Texans, if I'm them, I'm just going to try and stop the run and say, good luck, Drake Maye. If you beat us as a rookie in your first start, we can live with that.
Do you think there will be any design Drake Maye runs at any point, or do you think they want to kind of ease him into the swing of things?
I think they would. I would be negligent not to. Obviously, don't want him to get hurt or anything like that. But remember when Jacoby Brissett had his start against the Texans and he just ran around the edge? I think it was a bootleg, went all the way down for the score. Like, that was awesome. Great memory. It's one where I don't expect them to have the exact same play. That would be hilarious if they did do the same exact play for Drake Maye. But it's one where it would be irresponsible not to, because the best way to reduce some of the pressure on Drake Maye from like a literal pass rush perspective is to make them be worried that he can escape the pocket, right? Like, what do the Patriots do against every team with a mobile quarterback? They forego some of the sellout blitzes, some of the sellout pass rush moves in favor of contain. If the Patriots can get the Texans in the position where they say, hey, you know what? We can live with him dancing in the pocket. We cannot live with him breaking out of it. That helps the Patriots' biggest weakness, which is their offensive line. And then perhaps there's enough that can develop down the field where Drake Maye can get something going through the air.
I'm going to give you an over-under, Rich Hill. Since Brissett rarely broke 150 passing yards, does Drake Maye eclipse $150 this week? He does.
Yes, I think he does. I think he'll lean heavily on Demario Douglas. And I think that the tight ends will also produce. But my big performer and my X factor is going to be Antonio Gibson, who has had a knack for the big play. I say, here's your first read. If he's not there, give it to Gibson now. Maybe they'll give him 2 reads. But whatever the case will be, I think Gibson will have a significant day on the ground, because I think the Patriots will try to run the ball on the Texans, and Gibson has broken out a few times. I also think that'll be the safety valve and be able to produce through the air. So with those 2 things combined, I think that Gibson is going to have a 100-yard day, maybe a 50-50 kind of a situation with 50 on the ground, 50 through the air. And there's enough to go around where, maybe Jalen Polk has a couple, Demario Douglas I could see go for 50, but I would see him exceeding 150 today.
Here's hoping. It'd be good to have a 200-yard quarterback at least once this
That's
season.
So sad.
I know. Funny, you mentioned the tight ends. This could be a good Austin Hooper day. It's my X factor. Hunter Henry's obviously the better tight end, but if you got a rookie in there, maybe giving him into block, a little more pass protect, and Hooper's more of like the move tight end. I don't see Drake Maye calling a lot of audibles, doing a lot of shifts at the line, maybe a couple, but I feel like a 2 tight end set with Hooper kind of breaking out in the flat or a chip could be a nice little safety valve for him as well. So I think Hunter Henry stays into block a lot for this one. Maybe he gets 1 or 2 grabs, but I can see Hooper getting like 3 or 4 grabs for like 40 yards, maybe a red zone shot at TD or something like that for him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else on the offense? Again, it's kind of hard to really predict, because I feel like we're kind of back in week 1 here.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's one where you look at this Texans team, and I think they're one of like the 5 best in the entire league against defending tight ends, which puts them in a hard spot, right? Like I think it's been a mix of they just haven't played teams that really utilize it to that level. But it's one where, yeah, I have no idea what the Patriots are going to do. And that's fun.
Yeah. No.
I know what you're most looking forward to, whether from a wide positional perspective or just like from an overall schematic perspective. I am most looking forward to seeing if this offensive line is as bad as it seems. For me, that is going to be the top thing I'm looking forward to in this game is like, are they as bad as it's felt, or are they going to miraculously kind of look competent this game?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stay in the same kind of wheelhouse. It's going to be, I'm hoping, knocking on wood again, I'm hoping it's going to be a play or two where the play breaks down. Maybe his first two reads aren't open before he can even hit the check down, or his third read, the pressure's on, and May has to scramble and run around for a while, and he evades the tackle and throws it out of bounds. I miss those plays where the quarterback scrambled and threw it out of bounds, and it wasn't like 2nd and 17. I think that would be very nice to see. So I know, again, if he throws a pick, I don't really care. If he has a bad read, I don't really care. But if he's doing everything he can to keep the momentum going, and just those little stupid, nothing's open, I'm not going to take the sack here, I'm going to throw the ball out of bounds, it's going to be 3rd and 10 versus 3rd and 26. I'd love to get back to those days.
I have one question for you. Over under on 5 plays by Drake Maye that make you go, oh, they got something here.
5? That's a tough question to answer, Richo, because
what's your threshold?
If you've been drinking nothing but water for your entire life and you finally get like a diet RC cola, which is also crap, you're going to be like, this tastes so good. What is this? It's not water. This is delicious. So I feel like maybe under different circumstances, the answer would be the under, because there won't be that many plays. But I'm probably so skewed, and what I'm hoping for this offense, he's just going to like scramble for like 12 yards out of bounds. I'm like, this kid's it. This kid's got it. So I'm going to go with the over right now.
I believe.
Acknowledging my bias is probably going to be off the charts, and my bar has been just set so low for this season. Maybe this will be a good chance to recalibrate that.
Okay. Then the real question, how many fist pumps are you going to do if he completes a pass more than 10 yards down the field?
Oh, I think it'll be a fist pump. It'll be like a hallelujah. The hands in the air. It's like, there it is. Forward progress. Be back in like when the forward pass was invented, back in like 1948 or whatever it was. Like, what is going on here? They're passing the ball. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'll give you one, though. Over under Drake Maye, 40 rushing yards.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would go with the over on this because I think they're going to give him that option. I think that they're going to say, if you don't trust it, go. And this is kind of how he was at UNC in his final year there. He wasn't this way the year before, but in his final year, it was very much like, I have nobody on this team that's talented, huh? And then he would just take off and go. And lo and behold, not a dissimilar spot from an expectation standpoint. So I would say I would expect him to break 40. How many of them are going to be designed versus breakdowns? I don't know. I could see him getting maybe 20 yards off of designed runs, but then there will be enough times where he just leaks free and gets like 7 to 8 yards at a time, especially because this is where the Texans are weak. If you can break out, I can see him picking up some yards on the ground, and it's worth keeping your eyes open, not just for play breakdowns, but because it's a viable strategy against this team.
Last question for you, Rich Hill, before we move on to the Patriots defense for the Texans offense. Do you think that this quarterback change will represent any kind of change in maybe the receiver formations, the usage? I'm very confused as to how little Keyshawn Boutte gets on the field. I feel like every time he gets the ball, he's productive. He shows he's a good blocker. Tyquan Thornton seems to be out the door. KJ Osborne, I don't know if he's going to be anything. But do you think that the receivers on the roster now, they're going to shake it up in any way? Or is it Polk, it's Douglas, it's Kendrick Bourne, and then the other guys kind of pepper when they're needed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the other receivers are going to be pretty excited. I think Osborne and Thornton are kind of done. But I think that you have your Demario Douglas, who has shown that he can be a productive player. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they let him be a key focal point. I think Polk will get more opportunities. I think that he's put in a lot of work with Drake Maye himself. So I would expect there to be a little bit of a better connection. And then I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit out of Kendrick Bourne. That's I'm going to bring back my guy, Kendrick Bourne. Right. I don't think he's going to be a starter or anything like that. But I think that there's not been enough production from like Boutte, obviously not Baker at this point, even Polk, that if they need a spark, if they need a veteran safety blanket for Drake Maye to utilize, why wouldn't it make sense for it to be Bourne? And I could see him having a nice, bigger day than he did last week.
For sure. I mean, I think this is it's not a elite receiver room, but there is some talent in this receiver room. I don't like how it's come kind of a tradition around these parts for Patriots rookie receivers to not get both feet in bounds on crucial plays, but we can talk about that maybe down the line of ways. I'm excited for the Patriots offense, Texans defense. I'm also excited, Rich Hill, for the Patriots defense, Texans offense matchup. Let's get the 4th and goal here. The Patriots have a good defense, as we know. Christian Gonzalez once again proves himself to be an elite cover corner. His job got a lot easier this week because, as we mentioned, Nico is out for at least 4 weeks. So he's going to be on IR, which is a big blow to the Texans. He's definitely their best receiver. CJ Stroud, rookie of the year last year, good quarterback, very talented, very mobile, strong arm. If you are the Patriots defense, how are you utilizing your talents to stop this Texans offense? Are you still worried about the passing game because Stephon Diggs, obviously? They've got Robert Woods, who isn't a great player, but always seems to burn the Patriots every single time he plays them back in his Bills days and beyond. Tank Dell is a good receiver, so they still have a decent receiving core, as well as Joe Mixon at running back, who's always a threat to break one out. So what is your primary goal if you're the defensive coordinator? If you're DeMarcus Covington, are you taking away the run, focusing on the pass? You're trying to take away the pass to make them focus on the run. You want to keep CJ Stroud in the pocket and make sure he extend plays with his legs. What's your primary objective in stymieing the Texans offense, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balanced Texans offense, even without having Nico Collins, who's like a great outside receiver. Stephon Diggs, we are quite familiar with him. He is a good outside receiver, very productive, gives the Patriots fits. So I am a little concerned as to how they're going to match up. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Christian Gonzalez. You go up toe-to-toe, see if you can lock him down again the same way that you've been doing the other premier wide receivers in your early career. I just don't know from like a physical matchup if that makes the most sense. But then when you have Tank Dell being the other one, kind of works out. I don't know if you play Marcus Jones, but more likely. The question in the counter from the Texans comes with okay, if you're going to cover Diggs, who I will imagine will get his, a lot of the flow in the passes are probably going to go to Dalton Schultz. When you look at the tight end room for the Texans, especially with the Patriots dealing with so much flux at the safety role, whether it's injuries or, you're not sure what's going to happen with Peppers as he's on the commissioner's list. Like, there's a lot of questions as to how are the Patriots going to match up against tight ends? And if I'm the Texans, that's what my focus is going to be. And so that means whether it's Marte Mapu, who's going to be my X factor, will he be able to build off of his really strong performance from the Dolphins to continue to develop? But he's going to have to play a big flex role. And whether it's covering tight ends, being available to defend running backs out in the flat. So whether you think of Dare or thinking Joe Mixon, they're both very talented runners and receivers. The Patriots are going to have their hands full. I think the secondary matches up well against the Texans wide receivers. It's the other positional groups that I'm more concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, if the Patriots have always kind of struggled covering tight ends as of late. One player who really struggles in coverage, I like him as a player, but every week I feel like I see Jelani Tavai just running behind somebody on a wheel route with his hands in the air, hoping he gets in the way. You don't like seeing that, and they don't really have a pure. Even like Kyle Duggar isn't a great pure coverage safety, which is why I think my X factor is actually going to be another kind of newer guy in that Del Pettis. I think had a big
Love it
today. He's that kind of safety. We talked about earlier, Rich, about how Peppers and Duggar were kind of cut from the same mold, these bigger kind of hybrid bruiser safeties. They don't really have that kind of McCourty, rangy sideline to sideline safety. And Del Pettis could be that. You know, he's not a small guy. He's like 5'11", 200 pounds, but he's not a tank bruiser kind of guy. So maybe he finds this opportunity with Peppers dealing with his issues. I'm going to withhold judgment until the facts come in there. But maybe with him sidelines, we can get Pettis in there and he can show what he can do. I think he'd be a great addition to this team. He's got the pieces, and if he can prove himself like the Texans, maybe he works himself into the starting roster.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think he'll get opportunities. If I'm CJ Stroud, I'm going to test this Patriots secondary and see what they can do. And obviously, without having Nico Collins, they're still going to want to play their game, and they'll try and test Patriots in the deep part of the field. That's absolutely what they can and should do. Where I have more questions, Alec, is going to be on that defensive front of the Patriots. You mentioned against the Dolphins, a lot of those challenges with tackling. We have a lot of penalties in general, but tackling, broken tackles, not setting the edge as well as they could. Do we think they're going to do better this week against the Texans, or what do you think a fix could be?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough because I think, I know CJ Stroud isn't just like, he's not like a Lamar Jackson and he's always a threat to break one out, but he's not an easy quarterback to bring down. And whenever you have a mobile quarterback like that, is always a threat to tuck it and run. You can't sell out to stop the run maybe the way you could with a Tom Brady, say, or Andrew Luck, or any of those guys who aren't pure pocket passers. I think the real question to me is, are they going to be able to set the edge more effectively? Are they going to dedicate like a robber or a spy to CJ Stroud? Joe Mixon is a good running back. I would argue that the Dolphins running back field was a better kind of platoon than the Texans have. It's basically kind of Joe Mixon and then nobody else really behind him. They have Dave Akunable, I think, who's in his 30s. They have David Pierce, but Joe Mixon really is the guy. Oh, Cam Akers, don't they? I like Cam Akers. But they have a good running back, not a great one, and I think they have more opportunities to do that. My issue, though, Rich, is just that I feel like the problem, you look at these games where the runners are just kind of going off, it's usually late in the game when the defense has been on the field for a lot, maybe 10, almost even 15 minutes longer sometimes than the offense has, and they just kind of get gassed. So the real question is, it's going to be complementary football more than can they fix these issues that are not penalties. Is can they get quick drives? Can they get the defense, can the offense off the field quickly? Can the offense get the ball back and not go 3 and out in 18 seconds and give the defense times to rest?
Yeah.
So I think if that's kind of what we see, even if the drives don't end in points, if they don't end in anything positive, if it's not just run 3 plays, punt it back, force the defense out there before they have a chance to fully recover, I think that's going to be the big fix to this run game. Complementary football is such an important part of this game. It's very easy to talk about how this one player, this one side is doing everything. But if you don't have pieces in place on both sides, it's eventually going to sway things the opposite direction. So the best defense, I think, in this game is not even like a scoring offense, just like a balanced offense that allows this defense time to rest and recover and adjust, because they really haven't had that the past couple of weeks.
Totally. I mean, that's a very, very good point. I think that the Patriots have not had an offense in a while that they can count on to give the defense a break. There were so many times last year where the Patriots defense, they had the pieces. They did well against a lot of teams. It was just at the end of games, they clearly just had no gas left in the tank. And we see that here as well. Just the dam breaks at the end. And if Drake Maye can lead multiple drives, that'll make the defense's life so much easier. Also, just from like a field flipping perspective, right? Like Bryce Behringer can only do so much as the punter to flip the field. And what you need as the Patriots defense is for the offense to give them some help in setting up where maybe the Texans back is to their own end zone, where they have to lead 10 plus play score drives to score any points at all. Never mind like setting them up on like the 40-yard line. And that's something that I'm looking forward to from this game, where maybe the defense will also benefit from the offense's improvement. My one question to you, though, is I think personally that the Patriots defense is going to have to force a couple turnovers, have a few big plays in order to allow the Patriots to win. Texans are 4-1, can make those plays. Who would we identify outside of Christian Gonzalez as the playmakers currently available on this team that you can rely on week in, week out?
Keon White obviously is still a force despite kind of the penalties that he had last week. I think what we haven't really seen yet is a good, solid punt return to really set the Patriots up inside good field position. So I want to see a good, solid Marcus Jones or whoever return a punt, get the Patriots really well set up. I think that could be really good. They're due for also, I think the Patriots defense is due for a score of some kind. I don't know if it's like a fumble recovery or a pick six, whatever it is. I feel like somebody on the Patriots offense or defense is due to run one back and give the Pats offense a cushion. So I'm going to say that comes, if it's going to come this week, it's going to come in the form of a punt return touchdown.
Ooh, I like that. I mean, the Patriots special teams has been fantastic this year. I mean, we talked about this last time. Bryce Behringer is playing at an all-pro level. Joey Sly obviously had a missed kick against the Dolphins, but worlds better than what the Patriots had the year before. So, I mean, special teams, it's nice to be able to count on them again. And I'm hopeful that the Patriots will be in a position to at least be competitive this game. And that's all I really want to ask for.
I mean, to their defense, Rich, they've been competitive in 3 of the 5 games they played, and they just haven't been in a place to win it. On the plus side, I will say where I feel like if we were talking about this team around this time last year, the narrative wasn't they didn't make enough plays to win it. It was they did something really stupid to lose it. And at least that hasn't happened yet, at least not to my recollection.
I just saw that highlight of that Jacoby Myers to Chandler Jones game against the Raiders, and people were like, this is literally the moment the Patriots dynasty ended. Like, this is the exact moment. And it's one where I'm like, I don't think I can dispute that. I think that is an accurate representation of when everyone went, oh, Belichick's getting fired, huh? I think that was the moment.
Yeah. And again, it hasn't happened this year. I'd rather lose because we're just not good enough than lose because we're just too stupid to win. But it does hurt to have what they won the turnover battle. They had a blocked punt and they still lost. And that never happens. But that's okay. Maybe they'll win this week, Rich Hill. They're at home against the Texans. Weirder things have happened. Let's get to predictions. And today's predictions are brought to you by GameTime.co, which is a great way to get tickets. We got the upcoming game with Patriots Texans. You go in the Game Time app, you browse through the seats, anywhere you want to sit, you can sit there. Love the feature, love the super deal. I love the seat deals before you buy, and I will always talk in great detail about the all-in pricing because that is my favorite feature on Game Time. What you see is what you pay, no hidden fees, no stupid taxes, no thinking you're getting a great deal, only to get screwed on the back end. What you see is what you get, and a lowest price guarantee. Otherwise, Game Time will credit you 100% of the difference. Make that 110% of the difference, which is even better. So take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, Rich Hill. So I'm almost tempted to give myself the win this one, even though I picked the Patriots to win 16-10. The fact that you had this game going 28-24 Dolphins doesn't make it as sweet a victory as I think it should, because that's a lot of points that were nowhere near to be found in this game. However, a win's a win. You picked the Dolphins, so you get the hammer this week. Patriots are hosting the Texans. Who you got?
Well, to my defense, I thought that Jalen Polk was going to score that touchdown. I didn't think both teams would miss those field goals. So I think net, I'm pretty much on point.
Fair enough.
I'm going to go a little off the edge on this one, Alec. I think that the Patriots are going to pull this one off.
Wow. All right.
I don't know if it's going to be pretty. I think that the Texans missing Nico Collins is going to matter a lot. And I think that the Patriots have a little element of surprise with Drake Maye out there. And I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up winning this one something like 24-20. And, whether it's the special teams gives them a score, I'm not expecting any massive days by anyone overall. And then I mentioned Antonio Gibson potentially going 50-50. It's a game, though, where I think the Patriots match up well with their defense if folks are healthy against this Texans offense. And it's one where the Texans are also just as close as being like 0-5 this year. They beat the Colts by a hair. Most of their wins have been by just the smallest fraction. And it's a circumstance where that luck can only go for so long. And I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of reverted. Patriots win the turnover margin by a fair bit and are able to win this one, even with like a last minute score, but be able for them to come away with a win.
All right, 24-20 Patriots. You know, it's funny. I kind of agree with you that the Patriots take this game. This is one of those things, again, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, where a team will fire their coach mid-season and the new coach. I remember when the Colts fired who was it? Then was it Irsay? Not Irsay. It was Chuck Pagano, and then like Jeff Saturday took over, and they won like 3 games because Jeff Saturday was somehow motivating them. They kind of like that surge of adrenaline, the camaraderie, the momentum. This is a change in our fortune. It's kind of like that intangible thing that happens. And I feel like it's going to be kind of a rally the troops moment around Drake Maye here. And I think the Patriots take this one as well. I mean, it's also a situation. This happens every single year, week in, week out. It always seems to happen where a bad team beats a good team, and then no one can figure out how the hell that just happened. And this could be one of those games. So I am also taking the Patriots. I don't think it's going to be a 24-20 game, but I think the Patriots take this one. The Texans come out sloppy, maybe take it for granted, maybe aren't prepared as they should be, maybe still a little rattled from that Colts win that almost wasn't. And the Patriots take this game something to the tune of like maybe 18-14, and maybe a late game-winning drive is stifled by a Marte Mapu turnover to help your X Factor get a little more credit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think that the Patriots can and should be in it in the same way that they have been multiple other times, in the way that I think the ball hasn't fallen in their favor in a few times this year, but it has a lot for the Texans. I can see it going the opposite direction for both teams. Do the Patriots win this game the majority of times? No. Absolutely not. Are there enough weird things at play here that they could pull this one off? Yes. Forward to breaking this down with you after the game, Alec. I don't know if you have any final thoughts on the Patriots and Texans game.
Nope. But May Day has arrived. Let's all enjoy it. And I think no matter what happens, Rich, I'm going to be psyched to talk about it next week.
Yes, absolutely. Can't wait to break it down with you. Until next time, Alec, you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See ya.